ActionSA has called for the axing of Batohi, calling for a full parliamentary inquiry into what it calls the NPA's ongoing prosecutorial failures. The party's Athol Trollip joins me now for more on that. Athol, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time.
You've said once again the NPA has exposed its deep dysfunction either through incompetence or willful neglect. And this time you're referring to the ongoing asbestos trial and the handling of Cholota's extradition from the US. Should Shamila Batohi be placed in a position where she is the only individual held accountable for if you like, the collapse of the NPA?
Well, first of all, let me just state for the record that we've called for a full inquiry into the NPA, and we've said that she should be suspended while that inquiry is taking place. And the reason for that is not simply because of the Ace Magashule asbestos scam case or the fact that Ms. Cholota was able to have her case struck from the roll because her extradition was not done according to the law or the prescripts of the law. As far as we're concerned in ActionSA, when we talk about ethical leadership, we believe that the buck stops with the leader. You know, when things aren't going on well in the country, we call for the president to account. And the NPA, the National Prosecuting Authority, is led by the National Director of Public Prosecutions. And things are not going well there. There's a litany of court cases that are being botched because the NPA don't do their work properly. And the courts are kicking these important corruption cases out because the NPA is simply incompetent. Now, I heard one of your other people that you were speaking to just now saying she's not responsible alone. We believe that when you accept positions of leadership and you are responsible for an organization like the National Prosecuting Authority and one case after the other is being rejected by the courts, then the leader must take responsibility. And that is why we're calling on the president to place her on suspension. She herself, for example, Shamila Batohi, has been calling on the president for the last 3 years to suspend Andrew Chauke, who is the Provincial Director of Public Prosecutions in Gauteng. And the president has done nothing about it. Yeah. So, you know, it appears that there's a lack of political will to deal with these kind of matters. And that's why we're calling Parliament to take action.
Yeah. According to Shamila, at least in the conversation with my colleague, she says, well, that would be taking the easy way out, Athol. It's easy to put Shamila Batohi as the face of the failure, but what we really need to do is look at the challenges that the NPA is facing systematically.
Okay, well, let me just say that I attended a standing committee on public accounts meeting where the NPA was being interviewed by the MPs in that committee. And all I heard was a whole list and litany of excuses from Shamila Batohi. But let's use the Cholota case, the latest case, where she was extradited from the US to give evidence in the Ace Magashule case. Apparently the extradition was botched because there was no authority from the Justice Minister. Now, that's got nothing to do with money. It's got nothing to do with whatever Shamila Batohi says are the reasons for the dysfunction in the prosecuting authority, because to go to America and to extradite somebody means that they had the resources to do that. They just didn't do it properly. So what's happening is that we're losing cases like the Timothy Omatoso case, the pastor accused of rape and all sorts of other heinous human trafficking and all sorts of things, and Shepherd Bushiri as well. They're all out of jail. Their cases were thrown out. Why? Because the NPA botched it. So please, I don't care what Shamila Batohi says, we're calling for a full-scale investigation into the dysfunction and the failure of the National Prosecuting Authority, and she is the National Director of Public Prosecutions. So she too must be put under the spotlight, and we can only have a full-scale proper investigation if she is suspended.
Well, you've already quoted Glenys Breytenbach, which I played a little bit earlier on from the DA, saying that what is really required here is an overhaul set of reforms that need to be put in place. For example, something like passing the Scorpion 2.0 bill to create an independent anti-corruption commission with the power to investigate is something that the NPA needs.
Okay, well, that's a very good point. I mean, but we don't need to hear from Glynis Breitenbach about what needs to happen. Parliament needs to take a decision about what needs to happen. But her point about having an independent prosecuting authority is really very important, because one of the other cases that confounds belief is the Pala investigation that the NPA refuses to prosecute. So if it was independent and it wasn't influenced by the government and the president directly, then I believe we would have seen a prosecution, but we haven't. So I agree with Glynis Breitenbach 100% there that we need an independent prosecuting authority and the return of the Scorpions, not the Hawks. The Hawks were a watered-down version of the Scorpions because the Scorpions were doing their job too well. We need a return of the Scorpions, and we need it to be led by somebody who's competent and capable and who has the appetite to prosecute corrupt politicians.
Now, you've already raised the issue where Shamila Batohi over and over again, at least for a period of the last 3 years, if not more, has been calling for, or at least fighting for better funding, something that seemingly the NPA is not getting. Now, a suggestion of a dedicated parliamentary oversight subcommittee to keep the NPA accountable to fight for its better funding and smarter recruitment, is that a good idea?
Well, look, you know, I'm not convinced that it's funding right now. As I said, if you can travel to the United States and extradite somebody and bring them back to a court case, that implies that there was funds available to do that. How they did it was the problem, and hence she has now been freed from that court action. So, you know, I think there's the perfect example that illustrates that it isn't just funding. And, you know, when people are always looking for an excuse why they can't do their job, you need to hold the microscope a bit closer and see whether they actually want to do their job. And we believe that there is political pressure being brought to bear on many of these state capture cases. It's taken 10 years to try and extradite the Guptas, and nothing's happened. We have seen a whole host of other high-profile cases slipping through the cracks. We've seen that the Zondo Commission's work that cost this country more than R1 billion is gathering dust because there are no prosecutions taking place. Only six prosecutions have taken place of some small fire people, but not the people who are responsible for the 500 billion rands worth of state capture that happened during the Jacob Zuma era. So we believe that the NPA is underperforming, malperforming, and is being poorly led, and people are leaving there. And we need to find out why. And we need to find out why we keep losing these cases. That's what needs to be ascertained.
Well, here's another spanner in the works. You've already mentioned the Pala matter. But the DA says, well, if she is to be removed, then the public should be involved in that process of removing her so that it doesn't seem, I suppose, like it's the president that is removing her because she needs to investigate the Pala matter.
Well, the DA would have to change the legislation then, which is unlikely. The president appoints the National Director of Public Prosecutions. The president has the power, according to the National Prosecution Act, to get rid of or suspend the National Director of Public Prosecutions. And we believe that after thorough investigation, that should happen, or she should be suspended while their thorough investigation is being done. So the president must do what he must do. But we know that he's notoriously bad at acting, so we will keep putting pressure on him until he does take the necessary action.
Athol, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. Athol Trollip of ActionSA calling for the at least immediate suspension of the National Director of Public Prosecution while a full inquiry is conducted in Parliament into the incapacity at the National Prosecuting Authority.